Chapter 257, Battle of the Two Dragons. Both sides, get ready. The countdown on the projection screen will begin. In order to show fairness, Ku Qingshan was still the one presiding over the competition. The moment the 5-second countdown projection appeared, the 3 alloy silver pills and the flying sword instantly rose into the air and slowly circled above Zhu Tui's head. Dai Lijian did not make any unnecessary movements. His hands were slightly extended, and the 2 large red crystals on his index fingers were exceptionally dazzling. In the next moment, the countdown ended and the light screen dissipated. The battle began. Almost at the same time, Zhu Tui focused his gaze and entered the 0.2 millisecond time distortion. That was Zhu Tui's absolute reaction time. It was short. Most people could not tell the difference. Everyone who was watching the battle only had one feeling: Zhu Tui's silver pills had flown out so quickly. Zheng Shahong, Wen Xinglan, and the others who were watching the battle also frowned slightly. Zhu Tui's attack speed was a little too fast for them, or was Dai Lijian a little slow? Or had he given way? The distance of 10 meters from the standard combat position was too short. Zhu Tui's alloy silver pill arrived instantly. He threw out the mental chain, and the flying sword instantly spiraled into the distance. The moment the alloy silver pill flew in front of Dai Lijian, Zhu Tui's mind power focused slightly. Explode! In an instant, the 3 alloy silver pills exploded into hundreds of silver lights. This was the explosive silver pill. Silver light enveloped him. Dai Lijian did not panic at all. With a flick of his finger, a ball of flames suddenly appeared in front of him and exploded. However, what was extremely strange was that the waves of flames did not explode in all directions. Instead, they fanned out towards the silver light in front of them. Directional flame explosion. Under the intense shock wave and high temperature, the silver light from Zhu Tui's explosive silver pills seemed to have encountered an invisible barrier. It instantly slowed down. A few fragments broke through the directional flame explosion, but when they reached Dai Lijian, they still landed silently. However, Zhu Tui did not stop his attacks. Zhu Tui would definitely not abandon the opportunity that he had seized with the absolute reaction time. He spread out his palms, and one after another, the alloy silver pills soared into the sky and roared as they shot towards Dai Lijian. They would either bombard or explode. Zhu Tui began a high-frequency continuous attack on Dai Lijian. It made Dai Lijian defend with all his might. Unfortunately, Zhu Tui had already tried it before. He could only use the time distortion skill for about 2 seconds after he used it. Otherwise, under the continuous use of time distortion, Dai Lijian would definitely be unable to retaliate. Silver light exploded in the sky. Explosions sounded one after another. Dai Lijian seemed to have fallen into a passive state. In the distance, Zhu Tui's flying sword had quickly completed its strategic acceleration and started to turn around. Dai Lijian calmly raised his hands, and the red crystal on his index finger ring flickered. In an instant, a blazing sea of fire instantly rose. The sea of fire instantly engulfed everything within 10 meters of Zhu Tui. The scorching heat instantly assaulted Zhu Tui's face, threatening to incinerate him. However, he seemed to have been prepared for this. He took a step forward and leaped into the air. He stood 3 meters in the air and barely avoided the sea of fire. Zhu Tui had practiced the ability to step on air. He was just using his mind power to create a stepping stone. The key was that when he stepped on it, he had to use his mind power to support his body. It had a higher requirement on the strength of one's mind power. Zhu Tui was still unable to reach Zhao Xu's level. However, it was not a problem for him to stand in the air. At this moment, 2 beams of silver light shot toward Dai Lijian. Dai Lijian clenched his left hand, and a flame whip that was dozens of meters long appeared in his palm. The flame whip shook and whipped into the air. Zhu Tui's mind power trembled. The 2 silver pills that were rapidly attacking him suddenly lost contact with his mind power. Without the drive of mind power, the speed of the 2 silver lights decreased drastically. The silver light turned into a silver pill. It was not a flying sword. Everyone was a little surprised. Zhu Tui did not have the time to be surprised by the ability of Dai Lijian's flaming whip. The flaming whip was actually able to sever the connection of his mind power. It had a similar effect to Zutui's mental whip. The moment the silver pill flew out again, Dai Ligen had already launched an attack on Zutui. The moment the flaming whip in his left hand whipped toward Zutui, he waved his right hand. A fire snake immediately rose from the sea of fire on the ground. The moment the fire snake appeared, the sea of flames on the ground became even stronger. The moment the fire snakes appeared, they opened their mouths. Huge fireballs containing terrifying energy blasted toward Zutui. Zutui hurriedly stepped in the air to avoid the attack. However, Dai Ligen's flaming whip struck Zutui's legs like a venomous snake. The moment the whip struck its target, the flames on the whip exploded. There was a slight cracking sound and the smell of burnt flesh. He felt a sharp pain. Zutui felt that one of his legs might have been broken. Not only was his leg broken, but Dai Ligen's flaming whip had also sent him flying into the sea of fire on the ground. The intense pain from his broken leg caused him to fall into the sea of fire. No matter how he looked at it, Zutui was on the verge of losing. However, the moment he fell into the sea of fire, Zutui instantly activated time distortion. 0.2 milliseconds of time distortion. Time distortion not only allowed Zutui to have an absolute reaction time of 0.2 milliseconds, but more importantly, the pain in his broken leg seemed to have been weakened by an infinite delay. The pain did not affect Zutui much. The strengthened version of the mental whip lashed out continuously. The 4 silver lights that were circling in the sky shrieked at the same time and blasted towards Dai Ligen, producing a sonic boom. After the 3 silver pills and the flying sword passed through these few seconds of high-speed circling, almost all the spectators could not remember which silver light was the flying sword and which was the silver pills. Dai Ligen sneered at this. The fire snake in the sea of fire opened its mouth and spat out another huge fireball at Zutui. Dai Ligen was certain that he did not need to attack Zu anymore. This fire snake could take care of Zutui, who had broken his leg and fallen into the sea of fire. With a shake of his left hand, the flame whip suddenly expanded to nearly 50 meters in length, directly creating a circle of fire in the void above his head. It did not matter how many silver pills or flying swords Zutui had attacking him at the same time. Any attack from the silver pills or flying swords would be rendered useless if he lashed out with his flaming whip, which could cause damage to mind power. Without the guidance of his powerful mind power, these small silver pills and flying sword could not cause any effective damage to him. However, it was also at this moment that the wave of fire created by Dai Ligen's flame whip suddenly trembled violently. It trembled 3 times in a row. This was the reason why Zutui had used the mental whip attack. Zutui was certain that Dai Ligen's mind power was very powerful. Even if Zutui whipped him with his mental whip, the impact on him would probably be negligible. However, he was using his mental whip to whip Dai Ligen's flaming whip. He was attacking the mental connection between Dai Ligen and his flaming whip. Even though the flaming whip was in Dai Ligen's hands, this kind of external mental connection was still very weak. With a slash of the mental whip, Dai Ligen's flaming whip began to tremble and disintegrate. In the 0.2 milliseconds that Zutui had gained from the time distortion, he instantly lashed out with 3 slashes of mental whip. Zutui's fastest reaction speed was 0.1 milliseconds. In other words, he did not need to use his body's muscles to react. Zutui could use his mental whip twice in 0.2 milliseconds. Zutui had used another 0.1 milliseconds of time. He whipped Dai Ligen's flame whip 3 times. Almost at the same time, the length of Dai Ligen's flaming whip began to rapidly disintegrate. It disintegrated from 50 meters to 10 meters in an instant. The waves of fire that were formed directly protected all the airspace above his head. However, the disintegration of the flame whip caused a large area of the sky above his head to become empty. The 4 streaks of silver light formed by the flying sword and the 3 alloy silver pills instantly shot forward. 2 of the silver lights blasted Dai Ligen's head from the left and right. The other 2, however, were rapidly interspersed with different directions. This time, Dai Ligen's expression finally changed. His hands suddenly trembled, and the red crystal on his index finger exploded with light. At the same time, Dailijin's special fiery red combat uniform instantly spat out an extremely thick flame. Almost instantly, Dailijin covered his upper body with a flame shield that was about 6 centimeters thick. However, this flame shield was completely different from the flame shields that Zutui had seen before. This flame shield had a strange structure. It seemed to have been compressed to the extreme. While it emitted a high temperature, it also looked like an extremely thick layer of crystal. It could be called a flame crystal armor. Silver light blasted in. It only went in less than 4 centimeters before it fell into it. At the same time, the silver light revealed its form. Alloy Silver Pill. It was the Alloy Silver Pill. It was not Zutui's most lethal flying sword. Dailijin's expression changed drastically. Almost at the same time, Wen Xiao's mind power sank slightly when he realized something. Wen Xiao's mind power was as heavy as lead. It was as if a mental barrier had been placed over Dailijin's head. It was enough to ensure the safety of Dailijin. At the same time, 2 silver lights flashed past Dailijin's legs. Blinding flames erupted from his legs at the same time. His mind power surged and he immediately activated the directional flame explosion. However, it was already a little late. A silver light directly blasted into Dailijin's leg. Another silver light suddenly spun under Dailijin's knee. The huge impact immediately sent half of Dailijin's calf flying. Blood spurted out and Dailijin fell to the ground. Although all this seems to have happened for a long time, it had not even been a second since Zutui's legs had been broken by the flaming whip and he had been sent into the sea of fire. Then, Dailijin's flaming whip had been destroyed by the mind power and the flying sword attacked. The moment Dailijin's broken leg flew up and Zhao Xu's mind power, which she had been preparing for a long time, instantly reached out and wrapped around Zutui. She lifted him up from the sea of fire. At the same time, Wen Xiao's mind power blocked Zutui's whistling flying sword like a giant shield. The battle between the 2 dragons had ended. However, the audience in the arena and on the internet were all dumbfounded. Howen, Holost,